Good afternoon. Welcome to EduCert Network. Friends, as you know, this week we have organized a series of lectures on conflict studies, and today we are going to discuss conflict and media, especially how media report the conflict and what are the situation, what are the dilemma they face, and after reporting the reports, how could be analyzed for the purposes that, especially for improving the reporting. And for discussion on this very topic, we have in the studio Dr. Anand Pradhan, known columnist and known face. You all are aware of his face and have watched on different news channels. And he is, we can say, the champion of commenting on the conflict in the government and different social and economic situation, political situations. So I hope he will also today will comment upon the societal conflict and how the media has reported and how could be analyzed. So on your behalf, I welcome Dr. Pradhan for the EduCert lecture on this very topic. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Amarendu-ji, and a very warm good afternoon to all my faculty members, students and viewers. Friends, we are discussing here the role of media in conflict situation, and my focus would be I'm not going to discuss the whole relationship between media and how media play a role in conflict situation, but I would focus more on research opportunities and particularly what are our approaches to research to analyze the role of media during conflict situation. So my focus would be on approaches to research, and also we will discuss some of the issues and particularly the research methodology which we can use in analyzing the role of media during the conflict situation. But before I would briefly like to discuss some of the issues related to conflict, how we should define the idea of conflict and what is conflict, and understanding the causes of conflict. Then only we will discuss the role of media in a conflict situation. You all know conflict is a very important issue, and particularly for media. Media is very much interested in the issue of conflict because conflict always attracts media attention. Many analysts and the media critics, they have said that if it bleeds, it leads, which means the violence always attracts media. So how we should analyze the role of media in conflict situation, whether they should play a role of peacemaker, whether they should play a role of consensus builder, or whether they should play just a simple reflection of what is happening in society. So let us first discuss or define what is conflict. And I will briefly discuss this. What is conflict? Conflict is a situation where two or more individuals or groups try to pursue goals or ambition which they believe they cannot share. So which means conflict is basically some kind of goal or ambition of individuals or group of individuals which they personally believe that they cannot share with each other. Second thing about conflict is all conflicts are not violent. Please understand, all conflicts are not violent. Conflict is normal when there is change. So whenever there is any change in society, you will find conflict. Some people want change, but others disagree. If their disagreement or their conflict is managed peacefully, it can be a positive process. So you will find conflict in societies, in countries, in groups, within an organization. So it is the issue of how you are managing the conflict or how peacefully you are managing the conflict. Sometimes when we fail to manage conflict, it becomes violent. But when conflict is not managed properly, it becomes violent. In violent conflict, people fear for their safety and survival. When we say conflict, we are usually referring to violent conflict. So when we are discussing here, the type of conflicts we are discussing here are mainly violent conflicts which are really affecting the society and which are really major concern for a country like India. Now, what are the causes of conflict? It is also important to understand the causes of conflict so that we can understand the whole idea of conflict. Almost worldwide, it is generally predictable that conflicts will arise where, number one, resources are scarce and shared fairly, as in food, housing, jobs, or land. There is little or no communication between the two groups. So the first thing is, when resources which are really scarce and if it is not shared fairly or properly, you will find the clashes between groups or individuals on the issue of food, housing, jobs, or lands. Like nowadays you may be seeing world over, the common people, particularly in Western country, they are blaming their governments, their corporates for their job losses, for the economic crisis, for the austerity measures, and world over there you will find this the latest movement of Occupy Wall Street, which is against corporate kind of mismanagement of economy. So when resources are not shared properly within society, within the groups, you will find clashes, you will find conflict. There is little or no communication between two groups. So whenever in a society where there is a communication gap between two groups, or two religious groups, or ethnic group, or simple groups, you will find conflict is happening. Each group have incorrect ideas and belief about each other. I think this is very important for countries like India or society like India, where two groups or two societal communities which have their own ideas and belief, and they think that the other group is following some idea or religion or belief which is not correct. And when both the groups have no communication and wrong perception about each other, you will find conflict or violent conflicts. Unresolved grievances exist from the past. In many countries, in many society, where some of the unresolved grievances, they may be real grievances, there may be some not very real grievances. So either they are real or they are unreal grievances. But if some group feel or some groups feel that they are wrongly targeted, or they are not given properly share in the resources, or if they think that they are not treated properly in past, so they may have their own grievances which are unresolved, and because they are unresolved, they may have grudges against one group or a government or a community, and there may be some conflict. And finally, power is unevenly distributed. When in a society, if power is unevenly distributed between the communities, suppose one religious group or one group is more powerful than other group, and the other group thinks that they are appropriating all the powers and they are misusing that power, you will find violent conflict. So the power sharing between different groups and communities, religious communities, ethnic groups, is very important. Power should be distributed evenly, and no group should believe that another group or the other group is enjoying more power than this group. So these are some of the causes of conflict. Now we would like to particularly I would like to focus more on understanding violent conflicts. What are the violent conflicts? Violent physical conflicts can easily be identified. You can easily identify in many societies where violent physical conflicts are happening, like even in country like India, where you will find conflict in northeastern states, or in Kashmir, or in some states like in Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, in some parts of the Madhya Pradesh, in Andhra Pradesh. You will find Naxal nationalism. In some other parts you'll find separatist movement is going on. In some other parts some democratic movement is also going on. So you'll find in some movement or in some area you'll find violent conflicts happening. Individual or groups in conflict try to hurt or kill each other, and there are victims. But there can be other kind of violence which do great harm in society, and these are more difficult for reporters to see and explain. So we all know this is a violent conflict. So it is not very difficult to identify conflict in Kashmir or in Northeast or in Chhattisgarh where violent conflict is going on, where armed conflict is going on. But there are some other conflict also where you may not find violence, really violence, but they create possibility or they create opportunity for violent conflicts to open up. And what are those conflicts? The cultural or violence or conflicts. Cultural violence can be the way a group has been thinking about another group for many years. So it's like in India, you all know the communal violence. Why communal violence is happening? Because many groups believe that the other group or their thinking is culturally they are not up to mark, or they are not according to us. So cultural violence can be the way a group has been thinking about another group for many years, and there may be prejudices, there may be biases. It can include talk, images, belief which glorify physical violence. And here I would like to discuss few types of cultural violence, like hate speech. Different ethnic or cultural groups openly speak badly of each other. Like I would give you one example. Like in Maharashtra, some groups or political groups, they think that the Maharashtra is only for Marathi. So sometimes they talk something which is against North Indians or South Indians. So these are you may define it as a hate speech. In hate speech, different ethnic or cultural groups openly speak badly of each other, which means sometimes if a political group in Maharashtra blames for every ills in the Mumbai or in Maharashtra to the North Indians or Uttar Bharatiya or UP or Bihar wala or Biharis. So these are some of the forms of hate speech. One group blames the other for difficulties or problems. So suppose in Mumbai, suppose there is no jobs. So Marathi people may think that it is because of the North Indians. Or suppose something is happening in South India, they may think that it is because of the North Indians or the Marathi people or the Kannada people. So as we have also seen in northeastern states, in some states also, like in Assam, they think that their all problems is because of the Bangladeshis or the Bengali migrants who have migrated to Assam, and they are creating problems. So violence is encouraged to eliminate the blamed groups, and in those cases they generally encourage violence to eliminate the blamed group or those group who they think that they're creating problems. Xenophobia. Xenophobia is also another form of cultural violence. A people's or a country's hatred or fear of another country. When we fear about suppose China or Bangladesh or Sri Lanka or Pakistan maybe, those kind of hatred or fear of another country creates misperception and encourages policy which promote conflict with that country. Like in Pakistan, the many political parties or religious group, they blame India for every problem which Pakistan is facing. And in that way they are creating a xenophobia in their country. So it's a situation where they encourage their people to use arms, to use violence against India. So this kind of xenophobia also creates problem, and they are part of cultural violence. Myths and legends of war heroes. A society whose popular songs and history books glorify one side of ancient victories can build hatred for other side. Suppose I will give you an example about this myths and legends of war heroes. What happens in past, we all know in past there are fights between kings. So there may be a fight between Aurangzeb and Shivaji, but their fight has some historical context. They fought war between themselves, and nowadays some groups or some section of a society, they may glorify one king or hero or legend for their warriorship or for their heroic war. But the other group may think that they are only remembering that hero or that king, and they may create a kind of hatred among two groups or two communities. So this is another form of cultural violence. The another is a religious justification for war. Extreme intolerance of other beliefs promote conflicts. Sometimes our extreme intolerance for other beliefs, like Hindus may not like Islam, or Islam may not like other religion. These kind of religious justification creates intolerance among the followers of that religion, and that also promotes conflict. Gender discrimination. To allow practices and law against women that are not accepted against men is a form of violence. So when those practices and laws against women which are not against men but against women, they create gender discrimination, and they also opens opportunity or possibility for violence against women. Like take the case of Khap Panchayats. What Khap Panchayats are doing? They are not law, but they are what they are doing. They are targeting women. They are targeting those people who are deciding their fate, or they are deciding about their marriage or their choices, and one group of people are not liking that, and they are creating problem for them. Or like take the case of Valentine's Day celebration. Generally what happens, some religious groups are targeting young people who are celebrating Valentine Day. So these kind of gender discrimination, like we have seen one particular religious group or religious organization targeted women in Karnataka, those women who are visiting pubs. So these kind of gender discrimination, which are not for men but which discriminate against women, they also create problems. Then there are structural violence, and we must understand the structural problems of structural violence because they create conflicts in society. So structural violence is harm which is built into the laws and traditional behavior of a group or society. Harm is permitted or ignored. It can include, sometimes we don't see the structural violence, but they are part of our system, like institutionalized racism or sexism. Laws and practices which allow unequal treatment based on race or sex, they are part of structural violence. Colonialism. A country's lack of self-determination, a foreign authority forcibly assumes control over all important decision-making process. They are also part of structural violence. Extreme exploitation such as slavery, child labor, or the labor which are working in factories without any social security, or without any proper wages, or without proper labor laws, they are extremely exploited, and sometimes when they protest against these kind of exploitation, conflicts broke out. The poverty is another form of structural violence, the world's leading cause of violent conflict all over the world. The poverty is single most cause of violent conflict, and we all know that because the poverty is a structural violence, we sometimes don't see the reason or the cause of violence, but the poverty may be a very important, a very subtle reason for such kind of violence. Now, the corruption and nepotism also is a form of structural violence. Governmental decisions are influenced or decided by bribery, favoritism, and family or tribal connections. So in those cases also, I think these are part of structural violence and creates problem for one group or another group, and that may be a cause of violent conflict. Structural segregation, laws which force people to live in separate groups or places against their will. We don't see, but there are numerous cases, particularly in recent years, what we have seen sometimes filmmaker like Mahesh Bhatt or his close relative, another film actor, Imran Hashmi, he in a press conference blamed that he is not getting a house in Mumbai because he is a Muslim. So, or Sabana Azmi herself complained some time ago that she is not getting house because she is a Muslim. So such kind of structural segregation where which creates a ghetto, and we all know that even in country like India, which is a democratic country, which is a free country, and which respects every law, which is a secular country, but even in this country we see a structural, it is not part of our constitution, it is not part of our law, but because of the problem in society, and because of the some wrong beliefs in some groups, these kind of segregation is happening, which creates a scope for violent conflict. Now, I would like to discuss issue of media and conflict, because that is the topic of today's discussion. We all know, and I have started my discussion with this issue, that media is always attracted towards conflict. And it is the nature of media which always attracted towards conflict, because the common readers or the viewers or the listeners or the audiences of media, they are very much interested in conflict, because conflict is directly affecting our lives, our future, our jobs, our neighbors, our relatives. So our security is involved in conflict situation, and because the security of audiences are involved, that is why media is also very much interested in conflict. So news media is very much interested in conflicts. As one of the top anchor in the US said sometimes back, if it bleeds, it leads, which means if there is lot of blood, if there is violence, if there are killings, it always, you will find that such stories are lead stories in television channels. You will see such stories as a lead story in newspapers. So which simply means media loves violent conflicts. But some media person and media critics, they say no, it's not because of their love, but because of the interest of their readers, because it really impacts their readers, listeners and viewers, and because it impacts tremendously to their readers, listeners and viewers, that is why even the media is very much interested in conflicts. But these kind of violence are extremely important to identify when reporting and analyzing conflicts. So whenever we report violence or conflict, these kind of violence are extremely important to identify when reporting and analyzing conflict. It is important for media to analyze such conflict. Often they are the real cause of direct physical violence. So these cultural or structural violence, which sometimes media ignore in their reporting. They just report communal violence, they just report a clash between armed Adivasi groups and the security forces in Chhattisgarh or in Jharkhand or in some other parts of the country, or in maybe in Kashmir or in Northeast, and they just simply forget about the cultural violence or the structural violence, which may be the real cause of the conflict or violence. So ending the physical violence will not be enough. It will happen again if the cultural and structural violence is ignored. So it is important for media that whenever they are analyzing a conflict, sometimes they may see that the conflict is not happening, conflict is over, and there may not be some physical violent conflict, but they may be there because the structural or cultural reason is still there. So they should not ignore in their reporting. They should not just report only about the conflict or the killings or the violence, but they should also go into details of the reasons or the causes of that violence or conflict. Only then they can serve the purpose, or they can enlighten or educate their readers or listeners or viewers. Role of news media in resolving conflict, because why media reports conflict situation we have discussed, but the role of media in conflict situation is to resolve that, to provide solution to the conflict. So conflict does not end by itself. We all know that any conflict does not end by itself. Either the state or the security agencies or the law maintaining agency should intervene, or media should create channel for communication between two warring groups or two warring communities to stop that conflict. So media can also play very important role in opening the communication channel between two warring groups. To end conflict, one of the most important thing to take place is communication. As we have already discussed, in many conflicts, they happen only because of the miscommunication. Sometimes the gap in communication, or sometimes there is no communication at all. So role of media is to start the process of communication so that both the groups can understand each other's position. The simple reason is, for two sides in a conflict to move towards a non-violent resolution, they must first talk. This is where good journalism comes in, and we will discuss in detail about what is good journalism and why good journalism should play important role. So journalism's unconscious role is, professional journalists do not set out to reduce conflict. They seek to present accurate and impartial news, but it is often through good reporting that conflict is reduced. So whenever you report a conflict objectively, accurately, and also in a manner which is impartial, you are not taking sides, in that situation you create an environment, you create a situation where both sides will realize their fault and conflict can be reduced, or we may find a solution to that conflict, because media can play very important role in conflict resolution. What we expect from media and journalists, what are the criteria on which we should judge the role of media in a conflict situation? And because I am discussing these things, because it will play very important role when we'll research these issues, or the role of journalists or the role of media. So what are the criteria? The first thing is, there are several elements of conflict resolution that good journalism can deliver automatically as parts of its daily work. The first thing is channeling communication. The news media is often the most important channel of communication that exists between sides in a conflict. In sometimes there is the problem is in conflict that the media would be only source of information or only source available for channeling the communication. Sometimes the media is used by one side to broadcast intimidating messages. Like we all know, I have already mentioned you. Let's take the case of some groups which are working in Mumbai, and they are saying that Mumbai is only for Mumbaikars and it is not for North Indians. So sometimes media also plays in their hands when they broadcast what they are saying, that the North Indian or Uttar Bharatiya or Bihari should leave Mumbai. They are broadcasting their messages which create fear among the North Indians or the Uttar Bharatiya or Biharis. So such intimidating messages, or one side is using broadcast media or media for their purposes, but other times the parties speak to each other through media or through specific journalists. So sometimes what happens, and that is, I think, the role of journalism, where the role of journalism is very important, when two sides are speaking to each other through media, and then they can create a space for some kind of resolution. Second thing is educating. Each side needs to know about the other side's difficulty in moving towards reconciliation. So for reconciliation, we need that both sides should understand the difficulty of each other. Journalism which explores each side's particular difficulty, such as its politics or powerful interest, can help educate the other side to avoid demands for simplistic and immediate solution. The third thing is confidence building. Media can play a very important role in confidence building. Lack of trust is a major factor contributing to conflict. The media can reduce suspicion by digging into hot issues and revealing them so there are no secrets to fear. Good journalism can also present news that shows resolution is possible by giving examples from other places and by explaining local efforts at reconciliation. So when you present some stories, some case studies of conflict resolution, suppose you are presenting some case study of Nepal, where Maoist and governments and peace negotiators finally able to resolve that conflict. That case study may be a good example here in India also. So, or maybe our some of our success stories, like in Mizoram, where government negotiated with Mizo National Front and achieved a resolution of Mizo problem, which was really successful, and now Mizoram is most peaceful state of Northeast. So these cases study can be substantiated and can be presented for the reconciliation in some other parts where conflict is still going on, and by presenting such case stories we can build confidence. Correcting misperceptions. And I think most conflict happen because of the misperception, and media can correct those misperceptions by examining and reporting on two sides' misperception of each other. The media encourages disputing sides to revise their views and move closer to reducing conflict. Journalism and conflict. Good journalism is a constant process of seeking solution. So I think the good journalism should play role of seeking solution. The fifth thing, which is I think again important, making them human. Getting to know the other side, giving them names and faces is an essential step in good journalism. This is why negotiators put the two sides in the same room. Good journalism also does this by putting real people in the story and describing how the issue affects them. I will give you some examples. Like in communal situation, during the communal tension or during the communal conflicts, when media presents some real people who have helped the other group or the other communities or the other religious group, saved their lives by even risking their own life. So such case stories or such stories, when you present, they make people more humane. They create a situation where other side will also understand that the other group, which they think that they are villains or they are culprits, they may start rethinking about that group. So media should create or make them more human. Identifying underlying interest. In a conflict, both sides needs to understand the bottom line interest of the other. Good reporting does this by asking tough questions and seeking out the real meaning of what leaders say. So sometimes media should ask tough questions to leaders who are leading the conflicting groups. So good reporting also looks beyond the leader's interest and seek the larger group's interest. So sometimes some leaders may be interested in flaring up the conflict, but the role of media is to go beyond the leaders or beyond the interest of the leaders and focus more on the larger interest of the society, and by identifying the larger interest of the society, media can play very important role in resolving the conflicts. Emotional outlets. In conflict situation, there must be outlets for each side to express their grievances or anger. They will explode in frustration and make things worse. The media can provide important outlets for allowing both sides to speak. So when media provide their own platform to speak, by doing this, they are playing the role of in pressure cooker, where they allow to vent their anger or allow to speak their mind. So by speaking their mind, they may allow to express their frustration, and by doing this, they may stop the conflict to arise. Framing the conflict, I think this is very important for researchers. In a conflict, describing the problem in different way can reduce tension and launch negotiation. Here I think the media plays very important role. In good journalism, editors and reporters always looking for different angle, an alternative view, a new insight which will still attract an audience to the same story. Good journalism can help reframe conflict for two sides. How media is framing the conflict, how media is portraying the conflict, how media is identifying the different parties involved in the conflict, and is there any alternative viewpoint? Is there any new insight about that conflict? Suppose a conflict is going on in Kashmir from the last 20 years or 25 years, or maybe a conflict going on in some northeastern states from the last 40 or 50 years, or a conflict going on in Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand and some other parts of the country from the last 10 to 15 years. In those areas, can media give some new insight to resolve that problem? That is the real challenge. How media is framing that conflict is real question for researchers, and I will come to that. Face saving, consensus building. What happens when two parties try to resolve a conflict? They must calm the fears of their supporters. By reporting what they say, the media allows leaders in conflict to conduct face-saving and consensus building, even reaching to refugees and exiles in far away places. And by doing this, they try to create consensus building in society. Finally, solution building. In a conflict, both sides must eventually present specific proposals to respond to grievances. On a daily basis, good reporting does this by asking the disputing parties or their solution instead of just repeating their rhetoric of grievances. So suppose if everyday newspapers or television channels and their reporters are repeating the same grievances and not presenting the solution, I think that will linger the conflict. So good journalism is a constant process of seeking solution. And finally, encouraging a balance of power. Conflicting groups, regardless of inequalities, have to believe they will be given attention if they meet the other sides in negotiation. Good journalism encourages negotiations because the reporting is impartial and balanced. It gives attention to all sides. It encourages a balance of power for the purpose of hearing grievances and seeking solution. Conflict analysis for journalists and media. Journalists should seek out other parties and other point of view. So when journalists are reporting conflicts, they must seek out other parties and other point of view. It's very important, and we will analyze the role of journalism and media in this context. They should not only repeat old grievances. Journalists should examine what the parties are seeking and the possibility for withdrawal, compromise or transcendence. Journalists should write about this possibility. They should focus more on possibilities, resolution. With conflict analysis, journalists can understand what diplomats and negotiators are trying to do and can report it more reliably. So if you understand the whole conflict and why it is happening, you can understand also those negotiators who are playing important role in resolving that conflict. With conflict analysis, journalists can identify more sources to go for information. So in conflict situation, you should not only focus only on few sources, but you should expand your area of sources so that you have more information about conflict. Now I am coming to the main focus of my discussion, that is, what are the research opportunities available for media researchers. Research is necessary and required to critically analyze and examine the role of media in a conflict situation. Because we are discussing the role of media in conflict situation, and we cannot help media, or media cannot play its important and vital role if researchers are not providing critical feedback to media. And for that, research is very necessary and required to critically analyze and examine the role of media. It is important for both media and public. Research may point out deviations and gap in conflict reporting. It can also throw insights about the impact of conflict reporting in resolving the conflict. It certainly opens good opportunity to media researchers, but research, particularly field research in conflict situation, is not easy. We all know in conflict situation, particularly the field research is very difficult, because in conflict situation it is difficult for researchers to directly interact with people involved in conflict situation. So it's a really challenge for researchers, but I think analyzing the role of media in conflict situation for media researchers, and particularly in country like India, where we are facing so many conflicts and where media is playing very important role. I would also like to mention one very interesting fact, that in a book, India's Newspaper Revolution, Professor Robin Jaffrey in fact articulated one very important thesis in his book, and according to him, in those area in India, only in those area conflicts occur, or they are regularly occurring in where media have not flourished or media have not grown. Like in Northeast, media is still not grown very much, or in conflict media, Kashmiri media is still not very grown, or media have not expanded, or its reach is very limited in Kashmir or in Chhattisgarh. So according to him, if you want to resolve conflicts, allow media to expand, allow media to reach to the common people. So I think this thesis of Professor Robin Jaffrey is also very important. So we all know the role of importance of media, particularly in conflict situation. So researcher should provide critical feedback to media, how they should play important, vital and positive role in resolving conflict. How is a violence explained? How does the explanation arise from the way violence is reported? Is a report confined to classic blow by blow account of direct violence, or does it also show the impact of structural and cultural violence on the lives of people involved in conflict situation? So when we are analyzing the reports, these are some of the critical questions we should ask while analyzing the media role or media's messages or media content. Does it eliminate the intelligible, if dysfunctional processes which may be creating the condition for violence? What are we led or left to infer about what should or is likely to happen next in conflict situation through the reports of media? What is the shape of the conflict? In the conflict framed as a tug of war or a zero-sum game of two parties contesting a single goal, so whatever one side wins, the other side loses. If media is portraying the conflict in this way, I think this is a big problem. Or as a cat's cradle, a pattern of many interdependent parties with the needs and interests which may overlap or provide scope for integrated solution. If they are presenting that conflict where the parties involved in conflict are interdependent and they must understand their each other's position and come closer to the integrated solution. So how media is portraying or how media is presenting the conflict is important. The social science research methods are used in evaluating media intervention in conflict situation. These methods are content analysis, Delphi studies, focus group, network analysis, survey research. I will focus on some of the research methodology now. Content analysis. Let us discuss the content analysis. Content analysis is a methodology in the social science for studying the content of communication. Here we are discussing the content of mass media. Earl Barbee defines it as the study of recorded human communication such as books, websites, paintings, laws, whatever printed in the newspapers, whatever said in the television channel, what is said in the radio station, or what is brought on websites, everything can be analyzed through the method of content analysis. And famously, Harold Loswell formulated the core question of content analysis. So whenever we are going for content analysis, these are the questions we generally ask. Who says? Which means the messenger or the media. Who says what? What is the message? In which channel? What is the channel used? Radio, television, newspaper or website, or a group communication or a face-to-face communication or some other traditional form of communication. To whom we are talking? Who are the groups with whom media is talking? With what effect? And what is the impact of that communication? So these are the few questions we generally ask or try to analyze through our content analysis. Kimberly A. Neundorf offers a 6-part definition of content analysis. Content analysis is a summarizing quantitative analysis of messages that relies on the scientific method, including attention to objectivity, intersubjectivity, a priori design, reliability, validity, generalizability and replicability and hypothesis testing, and is not limited as to the types of variables that may be measured or the context in which the messages are created or presented. But briefly I can say, in content analysis we generally study the message, the content, as the name itself says, the content analysis. And in content analysis we generally try to find out what are the sources of that information, how much importance newspapers or television channels have given to that information, how it is placed in the newspaper, photograph, the cartoons and some other graphic or illustration, the way it is presented, what is said in the communication, is it taking side, it is positive, it is negative, what are the, so we generally formulate some of the criteria on which we analyze the content. Content analysis is useful tool to decode the meaning of the message and how it is delivered to audiences of media. How media is reporting a conflict, how it is framing a conflict, and how it is portraying parties involved in conflict. We can elaborate all these, or we can ask this question to know the answer through the content analysis. These are few questions related to media's role in conflict situation. Content analysis can answer. It can help media and journalists to improve and redesign their messages. Then the focus group. A focus group is a form of qualitative research. As we have already discussed in content analysis, content analysis is basically a quantitative research, but in the focus group research is basically a qualitative research. So in conflict situation, only the quantitative data is not important. I am not saying that the content analysis is not important, but in conflict situation, qualitative research is very important. So a focus group is a form of qualitative research in which a group of people are asked about their perception, opinion, beliefs, attitudes towards a product, service, concept, advertisement, idea or packaging. Here what we will discuss in focus group, the content of the media, how media is portraying the conflict, what are the issues involved in the conflict, how that people who are involved in conflict see the media reporting. So these questions are asked in an interactive group setting where participants are free to talk with other group members also. It is conducted by a trained moderator or researcher among a small group of respondents. The interview is conducted in an unstructured and natural way, where here we allow our respondents to reply or to discuss, to debate, to raise questions in focus group study, where respondents are free to give views from any aspect or from any angle. In conflict situation, focus group study can be very valuable as it may provide deep insights of audience of media as well as people involved in conflict. It is good method to get the qualitative feedback of audiences. Even media can use this method to understand the conflict and find out solution of the conflict. So if media or the journalists themselves use this method of focus group study in conflict situation, that can be very useful for resolving the conflict. Now the Delphi method, which is again a kind of related, very close to focus group. The Delphi method is a structured communication technique originally developed as a systematic interactive forecasting method which relies on a panel of experts. In this method, the experts answer questionnaires in 2 or more rounds. So there are not only one round but 2 or 3 rounds. After each round, a facilitator, or a very trained facilitator I would say, a facilitator provides an anonymous summary of the experts' forecast from the previous round as well as the reason why they provided their judgment. Thus, the experts are encouraged to revise their earlier answer in light of the replies of the other members of the panel. It is believed that during the process, the range of the answers will decrease or the disagreements will decrease and the group will converge towards the correct answer. Finally, the process is stopped after a predefined stop criteria. For example, number of rounds or achievement of consensus, stability of results, and the mean and median scores of the final rounds determine the result. This Delphi method is generally used in marketing, in company analysis, where companies or the banks or the financial institutions are using. But in conflict situation also, we can use the opinion of experts how this one conflict can be resolved, or we can use the negotiators who are as negotiators, how they perceive the conflict and what are the way out of resolving that conflict, and we can manage the disagreements between the groups. Delphi method is useful for coming to consensus on how to resolve a conflict. Delphi method can also provide useful insights on how experts are viewing a conflict, its causes and ways to resolve it. Delphi may also present sticking points in a conflict situation. So By knowing the views of experts, we can also know what are the sticking points where they are not agreeing, and by pointing out those sticking points, we can focus on those issues to resolve the conflict. Then the case study method can also be used in research or analyze the role of media in conflict situation. A case study is an intensive analysis of an individual unit, for example a person, group or event, stressing developmental factors in relation to context. The case study is common in social science. Case studies may be descriptive or explanatory. The latter type is used to explore causation in order to find underlying principles. They may be prospective, in which criteria are established and case fitting the criteria are included as they become available, or retrospectively, in which criteria are established for selecting cases from historical records for inclusion in the study. Now the survey research. Survey research, we all know, and I think this is the widely used in communication research or many other forms of research, even in marketing and in the other areas. Survey research is a research method involving the use of questionnaires and or statistical surveys to gather data about people and their thoughts and behaviors. This method was pioneered in 1930s and 40s by sociologist Paul Lazarsfeld. The initial use of the method was to examine the effect of the radio on political opinion formation of the United States. One of the early successes was the development of the theory of two-step flow of communication. We all know that this two-step of flow of communication came through the Paul Lazarsfeld study. The method was foundational for inception of the quantitative research tradition in sociology and in communication research also. So it is basically part of quantitative research. Survey research can be used to get feedback about the impact of media messages in a conflict situation. So generally the survey research is used for gauging the impact of media or its reporting about a conflict situation. It can also provide what people and audiences are thinking about a conflict, about their belief and perception about the conflict, and also about the role of media. Survey research is also ideal method to gather information about audience profile to design communication strategy to resolve the conflict. So when you know the profile of your audiences, you can accordingly design your communication strategy. So survey research is also helpful in that. So this was my presentation, and now I would request Amarendra ji to, or my viewers, to ask questions related to this issue.
Okay, you talked about in detail how the conflict in conflict situation journalists should report and what should do. And as you mentioned in your lecture that journalists should be careful while reporting and they should provide a solution. So how you see the two reports, one you just mentioned about the Mumbai for Mumbaikar, and recently we have saw in the newspaper the Mamta, Chief Minister of West Bengal, Mamta Banerjee, a statement that in Hindi especially, दम है तो मुझे मार कर देखे. So was this agenda setting of the Chief Minister? Should it be reported by the journalist or not? How you see this statement?
The conflict reporting is really very sensitive reporting, and particularly world over, it is widely discussed subject. And there are ethics of conflict reporting. There are rules and regulation of conflict reporting. Because in conflict situation, when you are reporting in a conflict situation, what happens, you are also endangering your own life. And also, because the problem with conflict reporting, when you report sometimes, as we have already discussed, sometimes you may be used, or the media may be used, or journalists may be used by one party to intimidate the other party. Suppose when one particular group in Mumbai say something about Bihar people who are living in Mumbai, are migrated from Bihar or Uttar Pradesh or from northern India. They are saying something against northern Indians. When media is playing that statement, it creates fears among the people who are coming from, or the migrant from the northern India. Sometimes your reporting may also flare up the conflict which is already on. Suppose in some communal violence cases where your reporting may inflame the passion. Instead of resolving that, your style of reporting or your the way you are reporting facts may create problem. Same with the West Bengal case. I don't think that the media, by reporting the Mamata Banerjee statement, had crossed its Lakshman Rekha. But the issue here is the way Mamata Banerjee herself spoke about the issue, that dam hai to maar ke hame dikhaye. In which means you are provoking,
instigating others.
or instigating. In such situation, I think media people should use such statements very cautiously. They may, I think, they can. They should not use same words while reporting her statement. They may mild the statement, but she challenged Maoists that to harm her if
We can rephrase
the whole statement so that
here is two conflict of two principle of media. One is the gatekeeping principle, another is reporting truth.
yes,
So which one should prevail?
I think the role of gatekeepers will always be important, number one. And also, we know in media ethics, there is a principle which is called harm limitation principle. हिंदी में हम जिसे कहते हैं सत्यम वद पर अप्रिय सत्यम न वद, which means speak truth but don't speak
Truth that
harms others. So in the larger interest of the society, sometimes you are not destroying the facts, you are not manipulating the facts, but you are simply milding the statement. Like in communal tensions, you all know that the press council has issued guidelines in which they have said that in communal situation, journalists should not mention the communities involved in conflict, or those who are killed or injured in the communal conflict or ethnic conflict should not be identified by their religious community, because they may flare up the conflict. So I think media should always consider the harm of their reporting, because what we are discussing that they are reporting conflict not only to flare up the conflict,
Right.
but they are reporting, and as we have already discussed, that their role is to open the channel of communication. Suppose if the role of media is to open the channel of communication, but instead of opening the channel of communication, what they are
Putting
doing?
the lead.
Yes, they are creating more confusion by their reporting, or they are inflaming the passion of the people who are involved in conflict situation.
So okay, suppose one want to know the status of the reporting of over a decade, as last decade, say about the this one Maoist movement or the Naxal, how they have reported, what one should do?
I think the best method is the content analysis. And I think we really need content analysis, but content analysis will provide only some quantitative data,
Right.
and few observation through qualitative also. But we should also consider in such research the focus group or case study. Like in certain situation, like take the case of Mizoram. How the Mizoram problem or the conflict was resolved, or take the case of some other success stories where we resolve the conflict. That case study can also be very interesting for the media groups or for audiences in other part of the country. Thirdly, we can also think about the survey research, which means the analyzing the impact of media content on their audiences. To understand what kind of impact created by the media in a conflict situation or in a conflict area. So there are all opportunities available in conflict situation. We can use all, but I think the more important one is content analysis, because the messages are more important.
Right.
How messages are delivered or what is their impact, instead of discussing that, we should more focus on the quality of content.
Right. So the 10 years, last 10 years, so say after the Prime Minister gave the statement, so it will be a big number of
it's a volume.
Yeah.
Yes, certainly. And as you all know, in research, we always first think about our resources, the time we can spend on research. So I think in research, if possible and if resources allow, if time is allowing, and 10 years is good time period to analyze, or you can say it's a good time period to understand the role of media. But if you don't have sufficient resources and time, you can manage it within 1 year to 5 years also.
Okay. No, my point is how one can do sampling in content analysis.
Okay, so for sampling, there are some criterias on which you can analyze the data, or first you can coding of the data for content analysis, which means you are creating certain criteria like the sources of the information, like the coverage given to that particular story, or the photographs used, or the cartoon used, the editorial comments used. So you fix the criteria,
Coding sheet.
and coding sheet,
Okay.
and accordingly you put the data in your coding sheet and then analyze it.
Okay. So, well, friend, we talked about the conflict and media in detail. So, I hope this lecture must have benefited all of you. I would like to conclude the lecture here. I thank all of you for watching the lecture, and on your behalf, I thank Dr. Anand Pradhan for giving such an insightful lecture. Thank you very much.